think I got it.
All
Okay.
right, we'll give everybody a quick minute to hop in. Excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited too. I think it's a great topic.
Definitely, definitely. All right. Well, we'll get started. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in this afternoon. My name is Allie Bailey. I'm the intake coordinator with Lamco Wellness. Joined with me today is one of our lead clinicians, Tracy Tilton, who wants to kind of come in and have a conversation with us today on our podcast to discuss a little bit more about her upcoming group services that she's going to be facilitating. So I will pass the speaking baton to Tracy. Tracy, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm excited to be here. I think it's great to explain the group process because a lot of people aren't familiar with it. They
Yeah.
haven't done it before. They might be a little intimidated by it. So it's good to kind of like put out there what the stages are, how it's going to work, what's expected, and then to talk about anger management specifically, since that's the next group that we'll be doing.
Yeah, definitely. So wherever you want to start, it sounds like you want to go over a little bit about the processes of group,
Yeah.
for those who may not be familiar or coming back into group if it's been a little bit of time since they've been in a group service. But yeah, we definitely want to learn more from you and learn about you as well as you'll be facilitating these groups.
Okay. Well, just about me, I've been doing mental health therapy and other things like being management directors of facilities and stuff like that for over 20 years, which seems like a long time. But yeah, I've been doing individual and group therapy consistently for, I would say, the last 6 years. Um, I worked in corrections and I did a lot of groups there and a fair amount of individual therapy there. But now I'm working not in corrections and working with people who are maybe like a little bit more invested in coming to therapy, hopefully a lot invested. So it's a little bit different population, but the same the same rules like apply in terms of what you get out of group or how you run a group or anger management skills that you teach people. Those are the same regardless of who you're working with. So in terms of the group therapy process, there are 5 main stages. The first one is orientation, and that's when everyone's just like it sounds like you introduce yourself, you tell a little bit about why you're there. I would be probably more directive in facilitating while everyone kind of gets to know each other. Some people are anxious during this stage because they've never been there, or even if they have been, it's going to be kind of anxiety provoking to be around people you don't know that well and talking about stuff that's personal. And then the second stage is transition, which is the most uncomfortable stage because people start opening up. There could be conflicts maybe because people be like treatment resistant and people call them out on that, or they're like resistant to the facilitator telling them what they think they should do or something like that. Not I don't tell people what to do, but some people interpret it that way. Um, and then the cohesion stage is when everyone starts to like really form bonds with each other and as a group, um, and start to like really start to talk about why they're there and why the problems have been created in their life from anger. And then the most productive phase is called the working stage. And that's when you really get into like, I'm really giving people tools to work with and teaching them skills. And there can be some role playing. There can be some very brief handouts for in between groups for them to complete. And I don't overload people with homework because I know people are very busy and they're already taking time to come to group. So there might be a few worksheets or something like that every once in a while, but nothing major. And then termination, which is the final phase. And you talk about like what you got from group. You give feedback to me. You give feedback to other clients, other group members. So those are the 5 stages. And then some of the therapeutic techniques we use that you'll gain from this is like role playing, acting out scenes to build social skills. Universality, learning that other people have some of the same problems as you or going through the same things. Learning communication skills. We'll do cognitive behavioral therapy techniques, which are focus on your thoughts around like things that induce anger and trying to, either irrational thoughts like that or thoughts like triggers and things like that that usually get you angry and working on those to like kind of change your thought process and restructure those thoughts so you can control your anger more efficiently and learn one of the skills we teach people is how to fight fair, which I actually love that because so many people when they get into arguments it just deteriorates very quickly. So to teach people that there is a way for you to disagree with your partner, your spouse, a friend, your boss, whoever, that you can do it in a respectful way and do conflict resolution. And it's a learning opportunity and an opportunity for growth, not just for bad things to happen every time you don't agree with somebody. Because some people, I think, when you hear the word conflict, are always think it's like this big blowing up between two people.
Yeah.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be that.
Right, right. And you are facilitating the group and just to kind of
Yeah.
chime in, I know you mentioned like role play and communication. So people would expect to come in and be able to learn new skills and learn how to
Yeah.
communicate with others.
Yeah. And to practice those skills
Yeah.
in, a safe place. And that's, one of the rules that we would go over in the first session are the group rules.
Mhm.
Which, first of all, is to have this be a safe environment. So, like, no one can threaten each other, people can't insult each other.
Yeah.
It's all about respect and everyone having to feel like they are safe enough to talk about personal things
Yeah.
with other people. So, this group safety, and then there are group rules, just going over those that basically go over confidentiality and that you're not supposed to be talking about what was said in group or other group members in between groups. I mean, can we enforce that, rigidly? No, but we expect, people to have respect for other people and for the process and the fact, which I think they have because the point that they're there. And then for confidentiality, there's the not talking about other members and about what you talk about in group in between. But there's also we would have to break confidentiality if we found out about abuse of a child or an elder because we're required report or mandated reporters. So anytime we learn anything like that, we have to call Child and Family Services or report it. So that's the only time that what you talk about would be told to someone else, the only time. And then, about absences and cancellations, that they're usually about 8 people in group is ideal. And usually I would do 12 sessions. So if you're going to be absent, I just ask, that people call me or let me know before 24 hours and that they don't miss more than 3 sessions. Some people want a certificate for it, and I give out certificates. And if they miss more than 3, they can still come. They just won't get a certificate. That's usually how I handle that. And then there's also timeouts during group where if someone's getting a little upset, either because like teary or upset that way or upset like angry, different ways to be upset, then they could take a timeout and that's fine, or the whole group can kind of take a timeout, but to let people regroup and I don't want to say calm down, but focus a little bit more on what's going on instead of everything that's like wrong and like what
Yeah.
they're doing to actually heal when it comes to anger.
Yeah. Now, and Tracy, I have a question, and this just comes from the intake department, right? When people reach out, they do typically ask us, including like a timeout period, like from start to finish, how long are your sessions? Are they 60 minutes, 90 minutes, 2 hours, or does it depend on which kind of group you're running?
They're typically 60 minutes.
Okay.
I feel like that is after 60 minutes, people kind of kind of start to lose focus. Not necessarily. Some people could focus the whole time,
Yeah.
but I just like we always learned when I was going through graduate school, like study for 45 to 60 minutes and then take at least a 15-minute break because you retain the information more when you learn
Yeah.
the smaller chunks. So I kind of use that as my guide to how long I do the sessions.
Oh, that's great to know because I know, especially with people reaching out to us, like right now, we do have a wait list for your upcoming service. So, just giving those clear expectations up front and knowing what to expect, is great.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it can definitely be intimidating walking in and seeing like 7 other people there,
Yeah.
and you don't know, their story or, how if you're gonna get along with them, if you're not gonna get along. And people don't have to be best friends. They just have to be respectful of each other. And, when someone's talking, I like no put downs or interrupting people or
Yeah.
laughing when they're talking, stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Yeah. Um, So, I mean, the purpose is obviously to learn to manage your anger, and to develop and strengthen skills so you can use this in real life. And that's why we do like the role playing and also just really giving like a lot of information, whether it doesn't have to be like a homework thing, but like giving them worksheets that they can take to reference when after the group is over. I think people find those really helpful, because you can't remember everything that we talk about, and then you have that to look at and kind of be like, oh, okay, that's what I haven't maybe been doing that, and that's how you're supposed to handle this. Or another big part of anger management is learning the difference between being aggressive and being assertive when you're angry. um, because some people just think there's either like getting walked all over or being super aggressive. And so when they get angry for one or the other, that the only way they can respond is to be aggressive towards someone, whether that be physically aggressive, emotionally aggressive, verbally aggressive, whatever. So that's a really important component of anger management. And then, of course, learning what makes you angry, what your triggers are. Learning to stop violence or the threat of violence is to our best abilities. Some of those topics are the main ones. And um, you learn like how to have, I think I mentioned this earlier, like to have healthy disagreements, and how then you can, once you embrace those in your life, what will change. Because it doesn't feel good to be angry, especially angry all the time, or at all. It really doesn't feel good. And it can compound other mental health problems, can affect your relationships with people. People lose a lot when they can't control their anger. They could get arrested, they could lose their job, lose their partner. Um, so it's a worthwhile endeavor.
Definitely. And it's an investment of their time to feel better, to see an improvement with their interpersonal relationships, relationships with themselves. So I think it's a great service that we're going to provide. And we're definitely excited for you to be, leading that experience for them. So I know you had other notes that you wanted to go over and other parts of this, group service. And again, it's
Yeah.
going to be a great experience.
Yeah, I'm just gonna reference, let me say this, the manuals that I use to guide the group are all empirically based, which means they have been researched and researched and researched to death to find out that these skills and tools actually work. They're not just something that someone came up with and it's like, try this. They've been tested amongst other people and researched, and so they're solid strategies. And so they come from manuals, where that's where we get some of the worksheets from and the homework assignments and stuff like that. So I have like a guide of how I was supposed to present this for it to be most effective. And we'll use like cognitive behavioral techniques, and also techniques from acceptance and commitment therapy, which has some of the same components of cognitive behavioral, but approaches it from a little bit different way, but gets at the same things. So, I think learning all the problems that anger can cause, like your physical problems, it has a huge impact on our mental health and our physical health, which those are closely related anyway. But it can really, like, the stress from anger can create just a lot of stress in general. And then your body releases cortisol, which is really bad over a long period of time. I mean, sometimes you get it in like short spikes if you're like angry or, in a flight or fight kind of situation, stuff like that. But over the long term, it's really unhealthy. Um, you can get depressed if you are bottling up your anger or expressing anger, then getting in trouble for it because you're doing it in an inappropriate manner. You make poor decisions a lot of times when you're angry because you make them impulsively. Or even if you don't make it impulsively, it might not be for the best reasons that you're making that decision. It could be like get back at someone for what they said to you, or just to hurt somebody. And those aren't good decisions most of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then a lot of anger can also lead to problematic drug and alcohol use, whether it be taking illegal drugs or over the counter or prescription drugs, abusing those, and then, alcohol. And even, when you mix those, it's even worse. So, um, and we do get many people from the criminal justice system who are court mandated to come to anger management classes because it did get them in trouble one way or the other, and or at least contributed to maybe something they did to get in trouble. So there's a fairly high demand for that as well.
Definitely. And that's, I think, why, it's so important to have these services. And as you were mentioning, leading to substance use, sometimes people might not know the appropriate ways to cope for themselves. So it can also lead to those risky behaviors, which can ultimately lead to, legal issues and concerns. So coming in, even though it can feel intimidating at first, working with someone great like Tracy can really help to, you know, empower you and to feel good for the future, and be able to manage those different difficulties in everyday life. I know, sometimes we can get angry at, maybe what might feel little to someone else, but knowing those strategies can be helpful. So maybe, and, just to kind of ask a question to you for maybe everybody who's watching, like, what is something small that someone can do in their everyday, not to assign homework to the audience, but just something small that might help them manage feelings of anger?
Keeping a journal is a great way. I've encouraged people to keep anger journals or any journal. I mean, even with any mental health problem or even without a mental health problem, I think journaling is great. But specifically for anger management, it's really great. And I encourage people to write down every time they get angry, and we have like an anger metric stick, like whether it's a 0 or it's a 100, to put down, a 0, you probably wouldn't put it down, but like a 5 versus, a 100, like you really lost and got furious and you had rage versus, I got annoyed and I swore at my kids, or I got angry because they didn't, clean up and I swore at them, or, what the million different scenarios that make us angry. So to journal about those and try to connect, like, okay, this is what was going through my mind when I said this or did this, and this was the trigger. That's what happened. And
Yeah.
connect all those because it gives us a lot of data and about what's going on exactly, and that by using that data, we can more specifically tailor anger management to you.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Angry in different ways or for different reasons.
Yeah, no, that's great. And to even be able, like you said, data, maybe when we wake up in the morning, we feel okay. When we're getting ready, we have our cup of coffee, but something does occur. Maybe it happens every day, maybe the same time, around the same time. At least we kind of have that data to look back and say, okay, I'm seeing a trend. I'm seeing that this is becoming problematic for me. So therefore I can make those, arrangements, those adjustments to be able to conceptualize and work through those things a little bit easier. But I did see we have a question from our YouTube. So from A James R88, it looks like the question is, what do I do if I've gone through the program or other anger programs and still struggle with my anger? That's a really good question.
It is. And, we do talk about, in my groups anyway, we talk about like relapse because people do relapse into like old habits. Um, but I encourage them to either reach out and we can do like an individual touching base about it, or if you wanted to do another group, then you're certainly welcome to do that. Or if we talk individually, then we can make it very specific toward you, and just review the skills and the tools, and see if those, now that you kind of like brushed up back up on those, if they talk about if you were using them, if you weren't using them, and that kind of stuff, what
No,
led exactly to maybe not doing as well as you wanted to.
no, then that's great. And, we appreciate that question because that is something, even
Yeah.
in intake, we do get asked. And a question I have as well, kind of to piggyback off of that, is something we hear in intake, right? Is, well, the group meets weekly. The group continues, even if I may feel a week or even a lesson behind. Can you kind of walk us through what that would look like, maybe for an individual who is a little unclear on like a homework assignment or a previous lesson? Like, would they be able to ask questions in between groups so that way they can kind of catch up?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I make myself very like approachable in terms of I'm happy to spend extra time talking with someone in between group to like encourage them, go over skills of maybe if they didn't understand something or they're having trouble applying it. I'm certainly happy to meet with people and discuss any concerns they have.
Oh, that's great. That's great. And, I think as people start to come and they're, comfortable with you and also comfortable with each other, they'll feel safer, right? Reaching out.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
usually how the process works. It just kind of takes kind of getting to know each other in the group, and me to getting to know the facilitator a little bit and everyone's style, and
Yeah.
before, like the first orientation stages can be very anxiety provoking, but once people by the second or third stages, people pretty much um, hopefully are feeling comfortable and comfortable enough to speak up and to participate in the um, role playing stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think too, it takes a lot of strength. And I commend everyone who does reach out that,
Yeah.
is looking for those services because it's not always easy to make that first call or contact to be able
No.
to sign up.
Yeah, especially I think for anger. Some people are really embarrassed when they get really angry, or the anger causes a problem in their life. And it shouldn't be embarrassing. It should be a warning sign that you should get help.
Yeah. Yeah.
You could feel bad and apologize and everything the next day. And maybe, I mean, and that's all well and good. But I think it's more of a sign to you, like, if I'm getting embarrassed by the way I'm acting, then I need to change it. And so I'm going to reach out.
Yeah, definitely for the long term. That's for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So let's see. Part of the goals we want you to reach is to be able to communicate better, obviously, decrease your anger, handle emergencies, and handle emergencies when other people are getting angry if they're really escalating. How to take care of yourself or others in those type of situations. How to try to put yourself in really safe situations. I mean, there's always unknowns, right? But making better decisions about maybe like who you're with or where you're going, and if you've been drinking, or if you should go there then or not go there then, or just basic scenarios that come up in life. Try to help people understand that they can cause anger, and that can be scary.
It can, and it can certainly lead to scary scenarios, as you were mentioning, like where you go, who you're with, maybe even, if you've consumed a substance, that can be very scary, because if we are behind the wheel and we are under the influence of something to cope with anger, we're putting ourselves and maybe others at risk.
Yeah.
Definitely. And I just saw a question from Kathy, also from YouTube. I've heard of breathing exercises. Can you explain that?
Yeah. We incorporate a lot of different, like what I would call like an intervention, and breathing exercise I would categorize as an intervention. And so you just learn, one of the most basic breathing techniques is to inhale for 4 hold your breath for 2, and exhale for 6, and to repeat that. And the reason for that is because when we get really angry, like our heart might start racing and we're taking more shallow breaths, and that restricts the oxygen to your brain, so you're less likely to think as clearly. So when you start doing some breathing exercises, it takes the breathing more from like your diaphragm, so that's better for you to breathe that way. I also introduce mindfulness concepts, which I love, and that's anything from like meditation or guided meditation, um, to like doing, like it sounds silly to some people, but like I have a lot of clients who do art to relax. When they're getting kind of agitated and stuff, there's coloring books for adults that are like kind of Zen things and have like chakras and stuff like that that people find really relaxing to do when they're not feeling so great. Um, but yeah, and you can find guided meditation all over YouTube or, other places on the internet. So if you intimidated and not sure where to start or what to do, there's great stuff online that can teach you how to do it because it's really valuable.
Absolutely. And I think also when you mentioned art, I thought of a very close friend of mine who shares with me like writing music is one of her passions. Like she picks up her guitar and she's very musically inclined. So anytime there's anything going on, whether happy, sad, mad, glad, music is her hobby. So this could
Yeah.
also become your hobby. And as you kind of grow within, maybe art, maybe, mindfulness activities, you'll also find people alike to you that might share the same passions. So that's
Yeah.
something to also think about.
Yeah, and exercise, I mean, that's wonderful for anytime you get stressed out or if you just need to take a break, like maybe in your house and there's been some disagreements and you just need a timeout and to go for a walk or a run or whatever you like to do for exercise. Kind of
Yeah.
clear your head, get some space from the situation, maybe take a step back and get some perspective on what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love these questions, everyone that's chiming in
Those
to
are
our
good questions.
conversation. These are really great questions and allowing us to also think about things even in our personal lives. As many of you know, I have a background in personal training and group wellness. So, walks, going to an exercise class where you can definitely connect with other people. I know I went recently to a Tabata class, which very quick, quick pace, but okay, certain intervals, doing certain activities. So you leave feeling refreshed. You feel like you've accomplished a full body workout in 40 to 45 minutes. So it's great. And I do see a couple more questions here. Um, One is from Jimmy. What if someone is worried they're going to lose their temper in the setting of group therapy, but still want group therapy? What should they do?
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
Um, well, the first thing is that we would have a timeout. Like the whole group can take a break for a little bit, or if you just want to take a break and like step out, or um, just kind of go like aside from the group and do some breathing exercises. Think about what's making you lose your temper, why, and you and I can even go to like right outside the group, like outside the group room, and talk about it and find out what's going on, so that hopefully that de-escalates the situation. I mean, it's supposed to
Yeah,
be a
no.
safe place, so
Yeah.
acknowledging that, okay, I'm about to lose my temper, maybe because someone shared a story that triggered something in you, or any reason, but um, it's supposed to be a safe place, so that means making it safe for you and for everyone else.
Definitely. And I think being able to, as you said, consciously be aware that, hey, this is a trigger for me. And maybe this is something that you already have done in your previous groups that you ran. But if someone does need a timeout, is there like a hand signal or something that they may do to let you know as the group facilitator who's running the group that, hey, I just need a timeout?
Yeah, I mean, it's as simple as like just like you said, like, hey,
Yeah.
I need to step out for a second, something like that.
Okay.
And that's totally fine. It doesn't need to be like a big production where everyone's like, what's he doing? Where are they
Yeah.
going? Stuff like that. It's just, you get up and you take a break.
Yeah.
So,
Something comfortable,
not meant to
something
put the
easy.
spotlight on you in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, and that makes it more comfortable of a process for someone who might just need that couple second time out.
Yeah,
And that's
especially
great.
sometimes it can get overwhelming, if maybe you're hearing stories that are very similar to yours and or someone is challenge you in some way. It's supposed to be a very respectful way to challenge other people and I would say give feedback rather than challenge, but everything's supposed to be constructive, no negative feedback, only constructive feedback or sharing of your stories with other people.
Definitely, definitely. So, Jimmy, thank you for your question.
Yeah,
And I see another one from A. James R. Is it normal to cry more when you're angry and not as much when you're sad?
it's a really interesting question.
Yeah.
And I think it's normal to cry with either. Some people who are depressed don't cry ever. Like they feel sad, but they don't cry. Other people, when they're depressed, all they do is cry. So it's very individualistic. I think a lot of people, when they get angry, get frustrated and then they cry because, like they just realize, oh, I just messed this up, or you know, I left, in a huff and now I ruined that situation or, whatever situation happened. But I think with both.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, as a fellow clinician, I think, in the field we've seen people, not just when they're angry or sad, cry, but even happiness can lead to tears, just that emotional release. It can be seen as a bad thing to cry, but really it's just our own body's way of saying, hey, I've been strong for a very long time and I need a little time out.
Yeah. And I find that you feel better after you have a good cry.
Yes,
Your stuff was like building up and building up. And then when you cry, you're like, oh, I actually feel better.
definitely, definitely. And
Help you
um,
regroup a little bit.
Yeah, no, definitely. And as a personal trainer, I can recall a few clients. I was in my grad program when I was leading personal training groups and exercise classes, and they would say, like, is crying a bad thing? And I would say, no, but as long as you're hydrating after and you're replenishing your body of what, fluids were lost, crying can be a therapy method. It can.
It can be very cathartic.
Yes, absolutely. So thank you for that question.
Do you have any more questions right now?
Yeah, I was going to say, any other questions? I
Good.
love these.
Yeah, I do too. They're interesting.
Yes, yes. Yeah, send in your questions as we continue. And, this presentation is following our kind of our series that we've been doing through Better You podcast channel on YouTube. Kind of, displaying a little bit more about our group services that are continuing and upcoming. As mentioned earlier, we are waitlisted right now for Tracy's upcoming service, and we're very looking forward to that.
Yeah, yeah, I'd like to get that started soon.
Yeah.
Another thing that we talk about a lot are like we define problems in terms of like taking mutual ownership, issue like not making it personal against someone, like not calling names, not putting them down, not, a lot of people who don't fight fairly will like roll their eyes when someone's talking or let out a big sigh, like ugh, when someone's talking and stuff like that. And those are all aggressive techniques that people use that are not in the interest of having a fair fight. So we teach to recognize those things and, to use I instead of you statements. Because, if you're angry with someone and you or say like, well, you always do this, you do that, and they're automatically going to get defensive. So kind of turning around to like, I feel sad or angry when that happens in our relationship or whatever the situation may be. And it makes a big difference because once someone gets defensive, it's hard to have maybe a calm and productive conversation.
Definitely. And it can, maybe even create legal issues. It can create agitation, let's say amongst two spouses, or roommates or friends, right? Like we want to make sure our environments are safe. So, that's why it is important to be conscious of when we start to feel threatened in a situation, as you
It
said,
is.
rephrasing, taking a step back from a situation. That way we can all ultimately work together on a better outcome.
Yeah, and when people get in some of those situations, another skill or tool that we more of a tool that we ask people to do or to integrate into their what we call toolbox
Yeah.
is to count back from 100 by like sevens. Do that for a couple minutes. Sometimes it's hard to still be thinking about when you're angry when you're doing math. Easier for some people than, than others. But there's other techniques such as envisioning you doing something that you really enjoy. Like if you love swimming, like to jump into the pool and be swimming and visualize things like that that kind of have a calming effect, kind of get you out of the moment for a few minutes. So when you come back to the moment, you feel you're a little relaxed.
Yeah, yeah, definitely taking your mind and out of that situation, but really like maybe even placing like your body in a pool. I think of the pool, you're floating, you're in maybe cold, refreshing water. Maybe some people envision like warmer climates and the water's hot. Like just
Yeah.
body temperature as well can definitely take you out of that mindset. Something I think about from a DBT or dialectical behavioral therapy standpoint as well could be like distress tolerance techniques where washing your hands under cold or warm water. Um, I know sometimes we see them on those trending videos, but taking the glass bowl, putting ice and very cold water in and holding your head for a couple of seconds, like just something to ultimately refresh you.
Yeah, and another pretty popular one is looking at like being in a quiet room without people in it and going around and naming things, that you can see, things you see in the room, things you hear in the room, things you can touch, something you can taste, and something you can smell. So I encourage people like to do that and like keep some Tic Tacs in your desk drawer so you can use those so you don't have to like run out and be like, where's something I could taste? Um, and it helps people calm down because it gives them like something to focus on rather than just their thoughts for a couple minutes.
Definitely. No, all very good techniques. And I see two other questions here. So Kathy asked, and I believe that she's referring to when the services start. So when will that start? So right now we are wait listed when contacting into Lamco Wellness in the art intake department. We can take down your information and give you more details as to when Tracy will be beginning her services. And we are looking forward to be starting those soon upon completion of your intake with me or another specialist in our intake team, you will be able to essentially have a consult call with Tracy, who will provide you some more information. So thank you
Yeah,
for asking.
I'm happy to talk to people before we start and just go over anything any questions about the stuff that I've spoken about so far, or any additional questions you have. Um, so definitely, we can have a consultation call if that
Yes.
helps.
Yes, yes. Thank you for that question. And thank you, Tracy, for answering. And another question from A. James. What if I feel like most people could use the fair fighting coaching, even if they don't struggle with anger?
Most people probably could could use it. I think everyone has their moments when maybe they say or do something they're not that proud of later. Um, and doesn't always mean that they're having like anger management problems, but it is a good general rule just to have is that I'm going to fight fair and like no sarcasm and none of that, the other things that I mentioned, like the rolling eyes and looking annoyed and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Not putting other people down. So definitely, I think it would be helpful for many people out there to be aware of that.
Definitely, definitely. So thank you as well for that question. And I'm very excited that we're talking about this today. So please feel free to throw more questions in. We have a little bit more time left. And I know, Tracy, you're continuing to go over different techniques. And, it's really cool to learn about techniques because I think even as a clinician, right? Like we know that there's a lot of options out there, but to talk about them and bring them to light, it's really great to know.
Yeah, because I mean, in terms of going kind of back to the fair fighting thing, it's
Yeah.
really important when you're gonna have a discussion that might be lead people to have like a heated discussion about something. Maybe it's a hot topic that there's been
Mhm.
a lot of disagreement about or something that you pick the right time to talk to someone about something. Timing is very important. Like when someone just comes home from work and they're like all over and scattered and they're hungry or, have a million other things to do before they can relax. Like maybe that might not be the best time to talk. So you have to find like a mutually good time to have the conversation. Um, and also stick to the problem at hand. Pick one problem to discuss. And when you finish it, that that's finished and you can't keep bringing it up and throwing it in people's faces like 2 months later, 6 months later.
Yeah.
Um, if the problem morphs into something else, then maybe revisit it. But once you have the discussion, you can't be like, well, what about happened then? What about this and then and bring up 10 different things because it's not going to be a productive meeting. You have to just stick to one topic.
Right. And it can lead to, uncomfortable feelings and, um, feelings of betrayal or, so many other emotions that could come with it. And again, could lead to risky and legal concerns. So that's why it's just so important to communicate.
It is, and we'll have to focus on a lot of communication skills other than just these.
Yeah.
You have a chance to practice them.
Yeah. No, that's great. And I think being in a safe environment where you feel safe and there's someone that can, be the outsider looking into how you make role play communicate with someone, it just helps a lot. Helps a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, because these are new habits we're developing, and habits, just pick up usually after the first time you do it.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Do we have any other questions that are going to roll in? And if anyone does have questions, by the way, this live is going to be posted on our channel. So if any questions are lingering, you're always more than welcome to leave them in the comments section or reach out to us at Lamco.
Well, I hope to start the group soon, so I hope that some of the people who had questions will be interested in attending.
Yes, definitely. And we do run our intakes Monday through Friday. You can check us out at lamcowellness.com and reach out to us. Let's see, we have another question from Kathy. Thank you for asking. When hold a lot of emotions in, do you think it's bad for your health?
Yes, I do. I think it really affects your mental health and your physical health, um, because they used to always say that people like type A people would not let any of their emotions out and then they would just like explode. And I think that's like an outdated concept. But when you don't release your emotions, it can just be overwhelming and it takes a real toll on your physical health. You can just be exhausted mentally, physically, emotionally. Um, and that's another real benefit of journaling, even if you're not like tracking your anger, just to write in it um, for any reason is good because you just get things out and maybe you don't feel like talking to someone about it. You just, and you're like saying maybe you like can't sleep because you're keeping all of this in. And then you write in your journal and you've gotten it out to a certain extent. So that can help you. It's a sleep aid actually. And just help you feel better in general once you let it out because it's not a comfortable feeling.
Yeah, definitely. And I've actually also heard of like iPhone, I know voice memos. Like maybe if you're not feeling like
Yes.
writing something down, but some people like to scream, some people like to talk, some people might like to cry and speak out how they feel. So many different ways of releasing your thoughts and feelings, but I think writing definitely helps to organize them
Yeah, and
as well.
to your point, I think voice memos are a great way too. Because maybe someone's like, "Oh, I'm just too tired to write tonight," but most people then you could just like talk and, or send yourself messages. Like some people, like if they get angry, then I recommend like, okay, if they feel like, "Well, I have to text when I'm angry, I have to get this out and say this to this person," I'm like, text yourself. And if you still feel that way the next day, reread it, maybe modify it, maybe not modify it, depending on what you wrote. And then think about are you going to still send it?
Yeah.
A lot of
Yeah.
times people are, when they're really angry, are super impulsive.
And they can be, and I think texting too is such a quick way to communicate with someone. So that's a really good idea. Texting yourself versus maybe saying the wrong thing to someone
Yeah.
can be very helpful in those moments.
Yeah, because we can't take back what we say, and you might legitimately feel really sorry about it and wish you'd never said it, but once it's out there, it's out there.
Very true.
Thankfully, a lot of hurtful things are remembered for a long time by other people. So it's just hard.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And I see one other question, and yeah, I think this will be our last question for today. But from A. James, how do you suggest therapy to someone that is spiraling and needs it, but is very averse to getting help? Good question.
That's a really good question. I think a good way to approach it is to kind of ask, like, are you feeling? Do you feel good right now? And if they're like, no, I don't feel good, like, it's obvious, but I don't want to do therapy. I kind of like to ask, well, you could just try it. You don't have to make a long commitment to it. You could try it, and if it's not for you, it's not for you, and we can try something else. Or, like, have how long have you felt this badly? And did you want to, say someone said, like, well, the past year. Be like, well, do you want to feel this way for the next year? Because something, I guess, needs to change in your life, and there's someone who's trained to help you with those changes and support you and be your advocate as you go through the changes. Um, and it's just explain it's a safe place. You can say whatever you want. Psychologists can't tell anybody, um, except in those very limited cases that we talked about earlier. Um, and if they try it and they like it, great. If they don't like it, they don't feel comfortable, then no harm, no foul. I mean, it's not gonna hurt to go to a therapist and think, okay, this isn't for me. It can be harmful if you don't go, maybe, but
Yeah.
it's worth checking out. And I think that just for them not to feel forced and like something is wrong with you, so you got to go do this. I mean, no one wants to feel like that.
Exactly. And the other part about our group services is these are the open group. So there's no like commitment as there would be with a closed group setting. So you are more than welcome to come in for a session, as Tracy mentioned, to try it out. We may say as clinicians to try a few sessions just to see how you feel. Because again, there are different things, a part of the curriculums that are gone over in the sessions. So that way, you can see maybe the role play. You don't have to contribute necessarily your first session. You can just be more of an observer and then again meet with Tracy, your group facilitator, to be able to discuss any, concerns that you may have for when coming back in. So you can connect on an individual basis between or before or after your group service.
And real quickly, I know we have to end, but one good thing you could ask someone who doesn't want to get help is like, well, what's stopping you from wanting to feel better, or wanting to get help? Because I think there's a lot of different answers for that question, and it's really beneficial to know exactly what's stopping them from
Yeah,
getting help.
absolutely. And knowing the why, knowing also the reason for coming in. And to
Yeah.
Tracy's point, maybe I've lived this way for a while and I didn't have a guide. I wasn't feeling comfortable, but now I'm ready to have that guide to walk alongside me, not in front of me, not behind me, but alongside me amongst
In a very
others who feel that way.
non-judgmental way. Like, I never judge my clients, and
Exactly.
I'm just there to be their support.
Yes, absolutely. And, I want to thank you, Tracy, for coming on and talking about this. And we're very excited about launching your group and other groups that are going to be coming up. But as mentioned earlier, if you are looking to connect with us, have more questions, please, continue to like and subscribe to our content. We are able to answer your questions, but for anything more personal, reach out to our intake department. We are here, myself and my intake specialist team, to assist you. So we'll see you on the next one.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.